Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Webinar Weeks this afternoon. I'm glad you decided to join us. We hope you find our webinars informative. Webinar Weeks aims to address today's industry challenges and opportunities along with solutions and tips on how to overcome them. We're glad you decided to join us today. We have a good last couple of webinars before we take a brief 1-week break, and then we'll be back on Tuesday, the 30th. So just a quick reminder there, we will not be doing Webinar Weeks next Tuesday, but we will resume our last session on the 30th. So stay tuned for that. Our webinar this afternoon will last roughly 40-45 minutes. We'll leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. We do ask that you submit those questions through the chat function within Teams. You can use the little drop-down box, select AIEC. Those questions will come to Brian and myself, and we will moderate those questions to our presenter on your behalf. I do believe this particular webinar is available for PDH credits, and Brian would be happy to make sure that you get those attributed to you. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Brian. Who we have joining us today?
Our presenter today is Paul Tram. He is the Senior Market Manager for the Electric Utility and International Market segments of Hubbell Power Systems Enclosures business unit. Paul has worked in the electric utility industry for nearly 30 years. As an award-winning designer with multiple patents to his credit, Paul specializes in enclosure and equipment foundation design for URD and substation applications. Along with his engineering background, Paul is also a rare sheet and plate metal journeyman, which may add value to our discussions today. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Paul.
All right, well, thank you very much. And I certainly appreciate the association's presentation of these webinars. It's certainly of value not only to Hubbell, but also to your member cooperatives. So appreciate everybody joining in today. As you see on the slide here, we're going to be discussing utility underground and above ground enclosures. So I'm just going to start within our slides here. Again, as the narrators had mentioned, I'm Paul Tram, Senior Market Manager for our electric utility and international segments. We're going to start by sort of a product overview. And traditionally within Hubbell, we classify our enclosures products into 3 different categories, those being equipment foundations, such as flat pads or box pads that you might see used for transformers. It could be single or 3-phase transformers. They could be switchgear foundations, metal sectionalizing cabinets. In some of our other market spaces, such as commercial and industrial, you might see it for a DOT application. Think of street lighting, the boxes that control street lights. Those could be a product that would use a foundation as well in our other spaces. Next up, we would have underground enclosures. These are traditionally the handholds, pull boxes, or underground vaults that you might use for splicing. And then lastly, pedestals is a grouping. In the case of URD applications, you would have primary or secondary pedestals for use in URD applications. So we'll try and touch on each one of those products somewhat briefly in the presentation. And I would like for the presentation to be interactive. So if you do have questions, again, bring those up in the chat dialogue, and the moderators can chime in with those questions, and we'll try to get those answered for you. I'd like to start with some history of how Hubbell's entry into the enclosures space started, and it really kind of started back in 2006 with our acquisition of Quasite. You might recognize Quasite as the premier brand of underground enclosures, mostly made out of polymer concrete. You'll see the Quasite brand name along with another brand name, Polycast, and that's a drain product used in our water market space. You could consider that product type as something similar as underground trench systems that might be used in substations. You can see that the Quasite product brand has lineage back to the 1980s. Next up was another acquisition. CDR was acquired in 2008. And this was our entry into fiberglass or polymer type product brands, if you will. So Quasite FRP, which is fiberglass reinforced polymer, and then some legacy brands that are somewhat shaded on this slide. So CDR, Electromold, Western Power Products, and Custom Composites. Perhaps you recognize those as fiberglass product types that you might have experienced years ago. So CDR was originally founded in the 70s, and it was our entry into fiberglass and composite types. There is some metal components within that. The hot box product line, again, attributable to our water market segment. In the case of southern states, a lot of backflow preventers are needed to be heated during the winter months, and that's what that product type is for. Next up, we have Pencel, our acquisition in 2014. This is purely plastics related products, both high density polyethylene plastics and linear low density polyethylene plastics. It too has roots back to the 80s and is mostly, when you think of product types, it would be above ground secondary pedestals and underground plastic enclosures. And we'll try and touch on each one of those brands and product types that are associated to each one of these. We just had a recent acquisition, Armourcast Products, out in California, Southern California. We closed on that acquisition on December 30th. And what this offers is a better footprint in the West. Hubbell traditionally for underground URD products has had manufacturing presence, Lenoir City, Tennessee, which is essentially Knoxville, Tennessee. And then our Pencel facility is in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. And then we also have a large, actually 2 facilities in Juarez, Mexico that ship into El Paso. But trying to ship up or over to the West Coast was something that we didn't do well. So this will help us in the West, but it also alleviates capacity constraints on some of our plants because they have redundancy to offer us. So, you know, if I look at the slides in offerings, you know, it is very similar to our Quasite and Quasite FRP lines for underground enclosures. And then they've got the next 3 segments on this slide are some very interesting product types. Voltec vaults. If you do have any underground large vaults that are deteriorating or decaying, Voltec is a vault replacement system that you can use to you know, redo those vaults without actual excavation. So very interesting product there. Guardian safety barriers, doubt we need to really talk about these, mostly DOT type use. And then lastly, they're above ground secondary pedestals. Now this is an interesting product line that Hubbell previously did not have a good core competency in this product type. And again, I'll get into that a little bit later into the slides. So hopefully that gives you the background on how Hubbell came into our enclosures space. Within that, we serve 4 different markets, obviously the electric utility space, but also commercial industrial applications such as universities, hospitals, and DOT type applications. Then telecommunications, perhaps for any kind of rural broadband opportunities that you have. Certainly look to Hubbell for underground vaults or pull boxes for that type of application. And then lastly, our water and gas space. Some of our utility customers are both dual electric and gas and water utilities. So we're able to serve all of those spaces or segments. For our underground applications, the vast majority of our products are meant for non-deliberate traffic applications or incidental traffic applications. Hopefully on this slide, you see a sort of a silhouetted background, and what you're seeing is a pull box embedded in a sidewalk. This sidewalk is actually elevated off of the street level. You can see that this pole box has stub ups that are going to eventually be feeding a street lighting tower right here. So that's the general application that we have for all of our underground vaults and pole boxes. They're meant for non-deliberate traffic applications. Yes, a car could bounce up onto this sidewalk, clip the street light, possibly run over the box, but that's what's meant by incidental. It's not directly into a roadway. Those are all governed by a standard that exists, the ANSI SCTE 77 standard. It is a specifying standards, and we'll try and highlight the details behind that for you here in the next slide. So that standard is a performance-based standard. And what we mean by that is there's criteria that we have to do for testing of these underground enclosures, regardless of material type. So these enclosures could be made of polymer concrete. They could be made traditionally precast or pour in place concrete. But Hubbell, again, polymer concrete, fiberglass reinforced polymers, and then plastic type underground enclosures all exist within our product array. That standard has 4 different tier ratings, and you can kind of see based on the images that I have on the screen. It is meant that the enclosure box and cover perform as one. So in the worst case scenario, when a vehicle axle is directly onto the cover, that's what the tier standards are based on. But again, it's an entire assembly. It's not just the cover, not just the box meeting that standard. It's got to be an assembly. There is a deliberate traffic rated application or standard that exists, the AASHTO H20 or HS20. That's been in place for a very, very long time, but that is a materials-based standard. Things like materials such as wood or steel exist within that standard, but they don't really have a performance criteria for testing those enclosures. So what seems irrational is to have a standard that exists for deliberate traffic rated applications, but it doesn't have the testing or performance base such as the ANSI SCTE 77 standard. I'd open it up to any questions if we have those, moderators.
No questions at this time, Paul.
All right, thank you. So for underground enclosures, we considered handholds or vaults. You can see some aliases of pole boxes, splice boxes, underground pits or vaults. These images that I've got on the screen are essentially renderings of product types that exist today. The one on the left is a corrugated fiberglass or FRP vault with torsion assist covers. Your IOU utilities in Illinois, such as ComEd or Ameren, use these underground vaults for splicing or even sectionalizing cabinets, sectionalizing, and in some cases, they even do submersible transformers within this vault product type. So that is our FRP, our fiberglass reinforced polymer concrete vaults. The next image is a plastic, high density polyethylene plastic box. You can see a lot of reinforcing ribs within those designs. And that's supported with polymer concrete covers to meet the ANSI SCTE 77 standard. And then next is a traditional polymer concrete quasite enclosure. So it's a polymer concrete base and cover to go with it. You can see additional features within that. Racking systems, terminators, pulling eyes would all exist within those. Here's some factory installed options again, you know, as I just mentioned, terminators, gaskets, pentabolts, mouse holes, knockouts, pretty much you name it, we can throw it into our enclosures. You know, it's one of those cost to benefit ratios. If you have an enclosure, you just need one of it, might be more advantageous to field customize some of these boxes. But if you're looking at, you know, buying hundreds of one type of enclosure per year, we can certainly design that specifically to your application. And don't limit that to, you know, this small box that I've got visualized on the screen. We can do some pretty wild things. Within those vaults, we can have ladders and racking systems. So just, you know, sort of the sky is the limit. Of course, you know, price is always something to consider. But if we can make your world a lot easier, we're certainly happy to do so. Mentioned those large vaults. So here's probably a better representative image of what a product could look like. So these are corrugated fiberglass walls that are made up for the base. And you can see we can join them into segments to make them as wide or as tall as you need to. We can outfit them with different styles of covers. I previously mentioned torsion assist covers because these vaults can get very large. So covers in a polymer concrete world would not be light, to say the least. So torsion assist is an option. We also use the base as a sort of a foundation, if you will, when we join it with a form of a flat pad. Those would be called pad vaults. So your conduits or cables could be coming up through the FRP base and then through the throat opening of the flat pad, which could then be supporting something such as a switchgear or transformer. All right. Then those applications can also be used to support switchgear, such as the image in the upper right, or underground subsurface transformers, such as the picture on the left. You can see we can make them incredibly large. Oops, sorry about that. As seen on that picture in the lower right-hand corner. So it's very customizable. But granted, you know, most switchgear or transformer foundations they typically have a very consistent footprint throughout different manufacturers of those product types. So it's not like, you know, we don't have standard styles, but we can certainly offer some custom sizes if need be. And let's divvy up onto some flat pads. What you're seeing on the screen, the two images. The first one is a polymer concrete flat pad. The second one on the right is a plastic flat pad that's been joined with a ground sleeve to go with it. And there's a third feature within that image, and that's a sleeve that mates up, it collars the box to the transformer flat pad throat opening. So know that those options are available to you through Hubbell. Additionally, the polymer concrete product that I've got on here, the flat pad, has a removable sill portion to it. So if you have issues with plastic flat pads that are damaged or cracking or just not performing well, the split pad that we offer in polymer concrete, we also do offer it in plastics, allows you to replace that transformer while the flat pad while a transformer is still energized. So commonly what would occur here is the transformer would be lifted off several inches. Typically you've got enough cable coiling in the throat area to lift that transformer up, still energized. Take a Sawzall to the existing plastic pad, cut that away. And then you can, again, unbolt the sill portion of this split pad and slide the core and coil portion of it underneath the existing transformer, slide the sill portion of the flat pad to mate up with its back end, and bolt it all together and lower the energized transformer back into place. So might sound odd to you, but that does exist and customers do use that. So know that that's available to you. Moderators, any questions at this point?
No questions at this time, Paul.
All right. Next up, we have box pads and ground sleeves. Essentially, they are the same type of products. Ground sleeves are more traditionally associated to metal sectionalizing cabinets, as they are commonly more longer than they are deep. So box pads are sort of name synonymous. They are somewhat square in shape, whereas ground sleeves are more rectangular in shape. We make them in our 3 product types that I've already discussed: fiberglass, polymer concrete, and then sort of a hybrid product, which is a FRP product. It's like fiberglass base joined with a polymer concrete mating surface. So within those product types, we offer, I've got 80 sizes available on the slide, but quite frankly, we've got more than that. So in the pictures, you might see some ground sleeves in the top right, a transformer box pad cover off to our left. And then the lower ones, we've got hill holders that can surround your box pads and support the area terrain from eroding onto the transformer or its box pad. The image just to its right is a triple gang box pad, their foundation that was used by a utility in Minnesota to gang up 3 single-phase transformers, effectively making it into a somewhat of a poor man's 3-phase, if you will. Switchgear box pad in this picture just to that right, and then another single-phase transformer box pad that actually has little levels embedded with inside of it. So if you have issues with contractors or even your crews installing and that can be a concern for the transformer's longevity, know that we can embed levels directly into the box pad product type. Some of the differentiators with all of our fiberglass products is Hubbell offers female molded fiberglass products. So the finished product from an exterior surface, you're going to see a very smooth and aesthetically pleasing surface, whereas some of our competitors use a molding process called male molding, in which the product is actually sprayed up over a male type plug, if you will. And so what you get is the 2 pictures on the right, a very rough textured surface, excuse me, and something that could lead to a very unlevel equipment foundation surface. That could be a wire probe entry issue. So be aware of that in terms of the product types that you're buying, making sure that you've got level foundation mounting surfaces and the product is performing well. We offer reinforced fiberglass box pads and ground sleeves, such as if you're having issues with trim stringers, rotary string trimmers or lawnmowers hitting box pads and possibly breaking open the corners of them, we do offer reinforced walled box pads. Additionally, we also have some fiberglass patching that's very effective and easy to use if you're seeing that in your regions. Primary pedestals or sectionalizing cabinets, as well as deferral cabinets. Here again, you can see the image. Again, it's a female molded product, so you're going to see that extremely smooth surface on the outside. Your end users, if this is sitting in your front yard or in your backyard, I'm sure that's better than the male molded products that our competitors offer. It's just I don't think anybody really wants these in their yard, but it's one of those things. If it's going to be in your yard, hopefully it looks good. So again, these are used for sectionalizing of primary voltage applications. Hopefully everybody on the line is understanding how these are used in a URD applications. But certainly I can open that up to a specific questions. Do we have any questions regarding sectionalizing cabinets or deferral cabinets? Well, while I'm waiting, I'm going to take a drink here.
Still no questions at this time, Paul.
All right. So within our sectionalizing cabinets, we have different type of mounting arrangements. What you're seeing on the screen is traditional modular mounting plates within a sectionalizing cabinet. We can also offer different mounting styles that have sliding parking stands above or below the junction modules. And those mounting bars are mounted on a C-type bracket off to the side. You might be able to visually see something here in this image. That bracket exists on both sides of this unit, and it offers the ability to pivot the whole junction mounting bar anywhere from 0 to 25 degrees. So if you're using T-op connectors, reducing elbows on your junctions, the possibility to add more clearance or working space within these enclosures exists. We can outfit them with different styles of grounding, whether it be a ground rod or bar, or perimeter wires, or even just single ground connectors on the mounting bars. These range anywhere from 15, 25, or 35 kV applications. Certainly load break or dead break applications available as well. Did some design improvements to this product. Our wind lock previously had, we were using something called a rib nut, which protruded externally from the cabinet. And I liken it to sort of the Frankenstein bolts. So when that product type was in play, those rib nuts were mistaken for continuity or locator points. So we have since changed that up. And those no longer protrude from the unit. Additionally, we've improved our hinge design. I've just recently seen a cover in which it was hit by a tornado or wind shear, and it didn't fail at the hinge point. It actually fractured the fiberglass, which is actually a good sign, because that tells me our hinge is holding up, and it's extremely rare to see fiberglass damage like that. So nothing that anybody, that's sort of a God thing there that existed. So I'm not worried about our product. It performs quite well. And then lastly, we improved our trimming process of our enclosures. You can see some very fine straight edges within our sectionalizing cabinets. Again, that was just a process improvement using trimming fixtures and tools to do so. It certainly reduces any safety issues of linemen reaching into the cabinets, possibly getting scratched, or fibers protruding from the product as well. So. And then secondary pedestals. So what we've seen previously with primary voltage sectionalizing cabinets, those would feed into a transformer. If the transformer doesn't have enough secondary taps within it, you can certainly feed from the transformer and into secondary pedestals. I'm sure I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know already, but just want to make sure you understand the application. So these are our Pencil high density polyethylene secondary pedestals. These are commonly used in the Midwest, and the reason they are is the material type, the high density polyethylene, is a very rigid type injection foam molding process. The wall thicknesses are commonly anywhere from 1/4 to roughly 3/8 of an inch. Very robust product. You can stand on these things. They're not going to flex, so they perform quite well in the Midwest. Note that in some of these, 3 of these images have what are effectively an underground flush grade rectangular base, which then can be joined with an above grade dome. So as a utility, or even if you're working with a distributor, that distributor or yourselves can be stocking these rectangular bases to be used as underground flush grade enclosures. Then you could also use, buy domes if you need to go above grade. So the image on this right, this collection of images, is the Pencil option system to be able to go either flush grade or above grade with secondary pedestals. Do we have any questions thus far?
Still no questions at this time, Paul.
All right. So some of the things that we can do within the secondary or for the secondary pedestals, we can emboss logos such as an electric logo on the top of the dome. We can mold in or mold on labels such as the image that you see on the screen here. We can offer connectors to go inside the units. Those connectors can either be mounted onto the dome wall, or they can be free floating within the pedestal itself. We offer different styles of temporary service outlets or access. I've just got one listed here, but there are multiple options. I mentioned the connectors, whether it be 350 or 500 MCM. We've even got 600 MCM if need be. So many different options for connectors and features that can go within the secondary pedestals. Now I want to touch on the Armourcast acquisition. I mentioned earlier that their above grade pedestals offer us a new core competency that didn't exist within Hubbell's portfolio previously. And those are linear low density above grade pedestals. So same application as what I just previously showed you in the Pencil versions. These linear low density polyethylene products, I liken them to something like a porta potty. If you throw a hammer at a porta potty, it's likely going to bounce back at you and you're going to get hit in the head with that hammer. So that material type is very robust and it performs quite well in major temperature extremes, such as say the Southwest or perhaps even in Canada. So just another product type that Hubbell didn't previously have, but Armourcast is a very nice product offering for these. So be aware of that. Next up, here we go, cable trench or trough. So if you've had substation installations, whether distribution or transmission substations, I'm sure you're using some cable trench or trough. Previously, Hubbell did not have a good portfolio of that, but Armourcast offers a nice polymer concrete trench and cover system. The covers can be either polymer concrete or different material types. And we're just kind of getting our hands on this product. So quite honestly, I'm not totally versed at it. Armourcast had mostly sold it to mass transit type of applications, running along railroads or whatnot. They hadn't been selling into substations as effectively as we believe we can. So I just certainly want to make sure you're aware of this product type. Moderators, I'm curious, are we going to be sharing these slides with your members? Certainly it's going to be on the recording, correct?
Yeah, we can share these slides if it's okay with you. We would just need a set that we can provide out to our members.
Yeah, certainly. I think we'll make a PDF version of this presentation available to you.
Perfect. We can have Ashley reach out to you and we can get a copy so we can have it for our members.
Okay, excellent. That's really all I have for you today. So would love to open this up to questions or comments or any concerns that you might be seeing. If you've got applications that are troublesome for you in URD or substation applications, I would love to hear those, and certainly we can voice them here today, and hopefully we can help you through some of those. So moderators, I'll open that up to comments or questions.
Thanks, Paul. Just a quick reminder that if you do have any questions, feel free to use the chat function and direct those towards AIEC, and we'll moderate those to Paul as they come in. We do have a couple questions already. The first one, do you offer metal sectionalizing cabinets?
Excellent question. So, the presentation, we went over different material types and metal was not necessarily one of them. However, Hubbell does offer metal sectionalizing cabinets. They are, in fact, the traditional Maysteel design. If you've heard that name, Hubbell acquired the rights to Maysteel's metal utility enclosures roughly back in 2012. I was actually their engineering manager for 25 years, so know that product well. It's actually a different business unit of ours. So even though you would consider it an enclosures style of product, it's actually a business unit called utility automation within Hubbell. So know that they do exist. They compete well against Durham's product, or even now I know Eaton's Cooper Power Systems is offering metal sectionalizing cabinets. Eaton's design is in fact derived by our legacy Maysteel designs. So yes, we do.
Thanks, Paul. The next question, how do we obtain information about Armourcast products?
Excellent question. So our territory manager in Illinois, Greg Deinart, is on the line. He has access to all of our catalogs or marketing assets for Armourcast products. Certainly, we're willing to set up training, specific training, if your member utilities need that. As far as getting quotes, it's still going to go initiated through a Hubbell customer service person. Ultimately, that customer service person, or even our TM Greg here, would be coming through me, and I actually handle the quotes directly. Armourcast being such a new acquisition, we have very limited amount of resources from that acquisition, and so we're sort of funneling all of the inquiries or quote requests through myself, through customer service or Greg.
All right, the next question, how has the pandemic affected Hubbell's Enclosures business? And further, do you have production redundancy in place?
Excellent question. So this time last year, everybody was just getting shaken up by the pandemic. Nobody really knew what was going to happen. This time last year, I started working from home, as many of us did. So the initial shock didn't really come into effect until sort of April, May. And what happened, and to many manufacturers, is that we had to create social distancing within our own manufacturing facilities. So therefore, spacing between work cells had to be spread out. That took some time to initiate. As I mentioned, we've got facilities in Mexico, manufacturing facilities. The Mexican government had several things going on. We had to justify ourselves as a, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Drawing a blank right now. Anyways, we had to, present ourselves as something that was critical to infrastructure. So that took a while to clear through governments, not only Mexico, but even in the US. And then the Mexican government also had some worker shutdowns where they could elect to either go to work or not. So that was their choice. So we did have some initial effect that was true in our domestic US plants as well, where some COVID related issues. So by June, July of last year, most manufacturers had been hit in some way, shape, or form, including the supply chain. So it took a little while to overcome that. Compounding the issue, I believe that many distributors and even large IOUs, hate to use this expression, but I think there was sort of a panic buy to make sure that materials that you need to keep your your utilities going, or even infrastructure being built out. There was a lot of panic buying going on. So our business in 2020 was actually up in the electric utility space. But we knew that we had some shortcomings as far as redundancy within our plants. So that's something Hubbell corporate has really taken on a strong position. And acquisitions such as Armourcast is sort of proof of that. We're trying to create the redundancies, particularly of our manufacturing processes, in several different locations. I mentioned Rocky Mount, North Carolina, our Pensel plastics facility. Previously, that's all that Rocky Mount did. Now we're setting them up to do polymer concrete as well as fiberglass products. So Hubbell in general is really taking redundancy planning and infrastructure to heart and putting that in force. We have capital expenditures that are mind-boggling versus years past. So that's a good sign. We're reinvesting into our business, and we certainly have the capital and money to do so. So, you know, certainly have recovered from the initial shock of the pandemic. And I believe we're really well set up to handle any future issues like that, such as, you know, natural disasters, tornadoes, ice storms, hurricanes. That redundancy certainly helps us out.
Kind of with that in mind, this last question, how are your lead times relative to market expectation?
Yeah, excellent. So for our enclosures based products, especially in the electric utility space, I kind of compare us to the likes of Oldcastle and Highline, and then also Nordic. I'm sure your member utilities are very familiar with those names. So our lead times are in line or better than what I am hearing from those comparable competitors. And if I look at what I consider to be market expectations for lead times on fiberglass or polymer concrete, we're not quite there yet, but within a few months, I think we're going to be right back in line with market expectations. You know, when I say that, I think of a traditional single phase box pad. If we have no stock of that, that should commonly be a 4 to 6 week lead time. I don't think there's, you know, expectations beyond that. But that's what we aim for right now. Our lead time on those is 9 weeks. So we're getting very close to the 4 to 6 weeks that we want. Not quite there yet, but certainly looking or comparable to our competitors, and certainly are going to be able to improve based on those redundancy plans.
Well, Paul, that's all the questions we have at this time. We want to thank you for your time today. It's definitely been informative. I know you put up your contact slide earlier, but if anyone didn't get a chance to jot that down and you'd like to reach out to Paul or anyone else from Hubbell, feel free to reach out to Brian or myself or Ashley, and we'll definitely make sure we get you in touch with them. But great job, Paul. Again, we thank you for your time today.
Well, and likewise, I appreciate the ability to come on, and certainly you're doing your members a huge favor or justice by supporting this, and Hubbell would certainly like to be continue to be part of it. Thank you.
Hey, we'll reach out. I'm sure we'll have more opportunities in the future.
All right, sounds great.
Hey, up next at 2:30, we've got Velocity EHS speaking on the compliance calendar that I know many of you use. Courtney Graham formerly was our regulatory compliance manager here. Her position's been taken over by Brenda Carter. Brenda Carter is a new employee here at AIEC. We're glad to have her on board. She comes with an exceptional background, and looking forward to the skill set that she's going to bring to this position. But she'll probably be taking over that compliance calendar, and looking forward to hearing what Dawn has to tell us about that today. So if you haven't registered for that, stick around, reach out to Ashley, go ahead and get signed up for it, and join us back at 2:30. And that concludes this afternoon's webinar series at 1 to 2. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.